the May 9th, 2022 meeting at the West Clermont Local School Board. Mr. Romano, would you take roll, please?
Yes. Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney.
Present.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Present.
Mr. Chumley. Present. Mr. Patton.
Present.
5 present.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Adams.
Yes,
You're welcome.
up next on our agenda is a welcome to Susan Ayers. She's going to take the mic over there. Susan Ayers is our new partner here across the hall. She is the administrator for Union Township. She wanted to say hello and meet you all, so here's her big moment.
First of all, thank you all for giving me just a minute of your time this evening. I have been the Union Township Administrator for a month now. It's amazing how quickly time flies when you're having fun. I grew up in the Anderson Township area, made my way around, came here most recently from the City of Middletown and City Administration. So I spent the last month really trying to get out a lot, introduce myself as much as possible, and really get to meet some community members. And so meeting with Superintendent Adams and Treasurer Romano to really learn about the partnership between the schools and the township, and really hoping that we can help foster that moving forward. I believe a great relationship between the township and the school is truly an example of where we can both help each other succeed and do well for the community as a whole. So I just wanted to come by and introduce myself. I left a stack of my business cards with Superintendent Adams. To the extent I can be helpful in your operations, or there's something that we can work together on, please consider it an open invitation. I'm just very happy to be here, and if you see me out and about, please say hello. I don't want to take up too much time this evening, but just wanted to introduce myself and say thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Susan, we have President Jim Rudy, Vice President Michelle Delaney, Member Ryan Patton, newest member, Michael Chumley, member, and Tammy Brinkman.
Pleasure. Thank you all.
Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.
Okay, public commentary. Do we have any cards?
We do.
Okay. Kyla Hucker. Would you please step to the podium? And I remind you, you have 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Oh, I can't do anything under 3 minutes.
Ed, could you please state your address?
1320 Minks Drive, Batavia, 45103.
Okay, you're a teacher in the district.
Yes. I'm Kyla Hucker. I work at Amelia, and I'm just here to say thank you. I'm retiring this year, and 14 days from now will be my last day in the classroom. And although none of you were here when I got hired, I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to do what I've done for 35 and a half years. And I've been a 6th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade substitute teacher and a summer school teacher in the district, and they have all been opportunities to grow and to be some part of something greater than I am. I'm very nervous, so I had to type it. I've had a good career that, combined with my husband's employment and our diligence, has provided for us and our son. And every position in the West Clermont, I've lost my place, has a title and a job description, but I think there's no harder and greater job than being an elementary school teacher. All the hats, the responsibility, and the expectations are unmatched, I think, by anyone in the district. And I'm forever grateful for everyone connected to West Clermont that respected and took the time to get to know me and to guide me, and those actions had a positive impact on my career. Life and success doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it takes interested individuals willing to encourage, trust, guide, and defend, and I'm blessed to have had outstanding colleagues to work with and some admirable principals as well who wanted me to succeed. And I just wanted to take the time, because I know you guys invest, we invest, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Kyla. It has been a pleasure to work with you. I've known you for many, many years. And would you tell us about your roots in the district? I believe your parents, did both your parents work?
Yes, both of them came out of eastern Kentucky. military first for my dad, and then he came back, finished high school, and they both just have a love of education, period. Mom volunteered in my classroom until COVID came daily. Once things got settled, I'd moved to second grade, which was totally out of my element, and she is on it. Anybody knows Irene Gaddis? She's phenomenal, and so is my father. And they were in the district. Dad was principal at WT for many years. I think assistant principal at Amelia Middle. He was a teacher at Amelia, and Mom worked second grade Summerside, I think first or second at Willowville, and then 30-something years as a kindergarten teacher at Willowville. And it was their honor to do the same thing for many years. So, and my cousin worked here too at Brantner. So it's been a family thing, and it's kind of the end of the line in education for all of us, and it's been wonderful. I've really enjoyed myself. And thanks for asking about my family.
Yes,
I
thank
love
you.
that connection.
It's just a nice added touch to hear about them.
Yeah.
I know adults still talk very fondly of your mom in kindergarten.
Yeah, that is, I wish I could remember some of the things, but they called her a legend.
Yeah.
She's referred to that many times, and Dad was here, I guess, when they were building what is now the middle school, and they called it a glass house and a cow pasture, is how they referred to it when it was new back in the day. I think that was a newspaper article had referred to it under, because it was very rural out here at the time.
Good luck in retirement, and thank you for all those years and hard work.
Congratulations.
Thank
Just as a side note, tomorrow kicks off our journey around the district to celebrate all the retirees. So we'll be visiting each of the schools to give them a small token of appreciation and to celebrate each of them. Thank you.
Superintendent business, 5.01 Citizens Advisory Commission report.
You might be noticing a different group of faces to be looking at. This is West Clermont's first ever Citizens Advisory Commission. And each member sitting at this table applied for this position. And in working with Mr. Rudy, who's also a member of this team, and Mrs. Delaney, we look to create a very eclectic group and representing all aspects of our school district. And the first topic that you charged them with was middle school start time. And so they have been working very diligently since October. They've had a meeting every month, and sometimes some little tiny meetings in between as they've done their research, and have been a phenomenal team to work with. In a really challenging year, I have to say that the CAC meetings were some of my very favorite. The depth of questions that they brought to the table, their passion for the school district and interest in continuous improvement was quite remarkable. And so I'll just kind of stop at this time and turn it over to the leader of this group, which is parent Jen Schaefer. So turn it to you, Jen.
Thank you, Superintendent Adams, Treasurer Romano, and members of the board. I am obviously seated up here with business owners, parents, and employees from the West Clermont School District. As Superintendent Adams said, we tried to get as diverse of a group as we possibly could when we put this group together. Our report, which you have available, offers a consensus recommendation to you all. We also are going to provide the rationale that supports our recommendation based upon the research and the meetings that we've had from October through April of this year. When we met with, oh, thank you. Thank you. As we met, we had presentations from our middle school staff. We had presentations from Peterman Transportation. We had presentations from the the athletic director from the middle school. A variety of different groups came in to give us their feedback based upon how a change in the middle school start time would affect not only transportation, but those kids that were in athletics or in fine arts clubs. We had people come in to talk about how this would affect not only the middle school start time, but also the high school start time and potentially elementary school start times and how that would have a ripple effect throughout the district. We conducted many surveys, and all of this information is available to you guys so you can look more in depth into these surveys. We have some highlights in our presentation, but it's by far just a small amount of all of the research that we compiled. We had staff surveys with the middle school, we had parent guardian surveys, and then we also had a student survey. We really wanted that student voice to be heard. We did focus groups with the staff, with the parents, and the students. And all of that information, you can listen to those focus groups, you can see all of the questions that were asked and how they were asked to parents and staff versus how it was asked to kids. Based upon all of this research that we did, it is our recommendation that the middle school start time be changed to a later start. We believe 8 a.m. would be ideal with a stop time of 2:45 or 3 o'clock. This does shorten the school day compared to the student or the current school day, but the number of instructional hours would not necessarily decrease. And the impact on extracurricular programs and families would be minimal. If you see through the research, the majority of the stakeholders that would be affected by a later start time believe there are real tangible benefits to the students, to the families, and to the staff. I'm going to transition it over to Heather, who's going to go through some of our parent feedback.
Hi, so my name is Heather Bingham. I am the secretary of the West Clermont Citizens Advisory Commission. I'm also the parent of 2 8th grade students currently in the middle school. So this project was of great interest to me because I have seen the effect of what an early start time does to them. And, you know, one thing in compiling all of our research with parent feedback, overall, parents actually showed strong support for the later start time in the middle school. In fact, of the 942 survey responses we received, which you can see up here, overwhelmingly, 77% said that a later start time would not be disruptive or problematic for their middle school student or students. I'll go to the next slide. And from the parent perspective, overwhelmingly, 71% said a later start time would not be disruptive for their world. And we asked them to consider work schedules, household responsibilities, and other priorities. And still, 71% said it would not be disruptive to their household. You did have 15% who said not too disruptive, 5 were uncertain, and then of course you had about 6% who said it would be somewhat disruptive or very disruptive. Now keep in mind, people say, well, 942 parents only answered the survey, correct? We did send out thousands of emails for people to answer the survey. And we had over 30% participation. That is statistically a good amount of people who did provide feedback, just so everybody has a baseline. And of course, if you go to the next slide, from your perspective, we did ask parents and guardians, how disruptive or problematic would a later start time be for other children in their family? Again, overwhelmingly, 72% said it would not be disruptive at all. 12% said not too disruptive. 58%, let's see here. Basically, 80% overall said, yep, 72% said not disruptive at all, 13% not too disruptive, 8% weren't sure, and then 6% basically said somewhat or maybe very disruptive. And on the last slide, we asked parents to consider if we recommended a start time of 8 a.m. releasing at 2:45 p.m. Overwhelmingly again, 58% said, yes, we should do it. What was surprising was we had 22% that actually said we should start later at 8:30. So again, you have 80% of the parents surveyed who said we should definitely start at a later start time.
Does anybody have any questions on that section before we transition over?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah,
sure.
Of the people that responded, how many of them were eighth grade parents versus fifth, sixth, and seventh? Do we know that? And was fifth grade even interviewed?
Yes, so we did send out surveys to, I believe, fourth and fifth grade parents as well, because they will obviously have upcoming students in the middle school eventually. So I don't have the exact breakdown. I would be happy to provide it or get it from our partners.
I'll work on getting it while we're sitting here. I was
Okay.
trying to see if it was in the actual report. But it's pretty balanced, because it's not just families who are in it, it's families who are coming.
Got it.
Yes.
I wanted to see that it wasn't all the families leaving.
Leaving.
Yeah, no.
Right.
No,
They don't care, you know?
Right.
I'm just not sure
Thank you.
exactly
Okay.
if it's called out or not, so I'll look at it. I'll work on it.
Did you have anything else?
That's it.
Okay. I'm going to transfer it over to Tressa. She is going to talk about the middle school staff feedback.
My name is Tressa Ellis. I am the Vice President of the Commission. And let's see. All right, so let's talk about the middle school staff. Because as we mentioned in the beginning of this, we tried to be all encompassing in asking all of the stakeholders. So the staff was polled and asked how disruptive a later start time would be to the middle school staff. Overwhelmingly, 68%, if you take that green and blue together, it's 68% says that it's would not be disruptive at all, or not too disruptive. So we're seeing a pattern. The staff was then asked how they thought it would be for students, how disruptive or problematic would it be to start at a later time in the middle school. Similar numbers, the green there, we have 42% of the staff said that it would not be disruptive at all, and 28% said that it would not be very disruptive, so about a 70% total in positive. All things, they were asked, all things considered, if you had to choose a course of action today based on what you know and how you feel about the change in the middle school, what would you do? 89% of the staff said that they would move the start time. So 44% said they would move it to 8 o'clock would be their recommendation, and 20% recommended 8:30, 25% recommended 7:30. Only 11% of the staff said they would leave it as it is.
Do we have any questions regarding the staff feedback? All right. Heather will move on to the student feedback.
Well, none of this is going to come as a surprise to anybody. So one of the questions we asked our students was, how do you feel about the current start time of 7 a.m.? And overwhelmingly, 70% said, over 70% actually, said the current start time is either too early, or what was the exact language used here? A little too early or way too early, actually. So over 70% of the students surveyed, and by the way, over 1,300 students answered this survey from the middle school. So again, compelling evidence that students are also wanting a later start time. We also asked students, if you could choose a start time for West Clermont Middle School, what time would you choose? Again, 38% said 8 a.m., 32% said 8:30, 17% said 7:30, and 13% said 7 a.m., keep it as is. But again, overwhelmingly, the student population said a later start time would be beneficial to them, or they would prefer it. These next two slides I kind of found a little compelling, and I'll explain why here. So we asked students, what time do you get up in the morning and get ready for school? 63% of the respondents to this survey said they get up at 5:30 a.m. or earlier. I'm going to go to the next slide and show you this. 51% of the students go to bed between or after 10 p.m. total, which tells you, looking at both slides, that we have a good population of the student body at West Clermont Middle School that is getting less than 8 hours of sleep a night. And I can tell you anecdotally, when we had our focus groups, that there was a boy who mentioned he gets up at 4:30 every morning to eat, get ready, catch the bus, and get to school on time, 4:30 in the morning. I can also tell you, I have a twin daughter that plays travel soccer, and they practice on turf high school fields in the area. When she has a practice that ends at 9 a.m., or 9 p.m. rather, she comes home, has to get ready for bed, eat a snack, maybe finish up any homework she couldn't get to, doesn't get to bed till 11 o'clock at night, gets up at 5 a.m. every morning. And we heard story after story after story in our focus groups from these students of how much sleep they don't get, how many kids they see sleeping in class every single day. I'm going to go to the next slide. How do you feel about a possible start time of 8 a.m.? Again, overwhelmingly, 37% extremely positive, 35% very positive, 17% a little positive. Same thing, you're seeing a theme. They all want the later start time. Do you think a start time of 8 a.m. at West Clermont Middle School would help students perform better? 77% said yes. 77% said yes, it would help them perform better if they had a later start time. 17% were not sure, 6% said no.
I think it's important to note, like Heather said, we had over 1,300 kids respond to this. We had focus groups where we sat down with just a small set of those kids, and you'll be able to listen to some of the things that they said and some of their ideas, and just how they truly feel that a later start time would be in the best interest of themselves and their peers. Tressa is also going to talk about some secondary research that we looked at, so information from outside the district.
So the information that we looked at to gather our recommendation for the school board was not just about how we feel, about how the teachers feel, how the students feel. We actually looked at outside research. So we carefully researched and gathered information published by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Institution of Health, Centers for Disease Control, and other academic and professional sources. So for the first couple of meetings, we scoured through research. The consensus of these organizations was that a later start time for school has clear benefits to our students. To qualify these outside findings at our local level, we asked West Clermont Middle School staff to consider the secondary research to determine its importance, its credibility, and its applicability to West Clermont Middle School. We also gave parents the option of evaluating the outside information and providing their perspective. When surveyed, we asked the middle school staff how compelling they felt the research was that we presented to them. 48% in the green felt that it was very compelling, and 35% felt that it was somewhat compelling. So about 83% felt that it was compelling. 8% were unsure, and another 8% was not too compelling. So again, the overwhelming is that it was compelling. We asked them how credible they found the information to be. 60% found it to be very credible, and 24% was somewhat credible. So total 84% of the staff found it to be very or somewhat credible. Only 14% was unsure, and only 2% said they believed it to not be credible. So now, looking at parents, we asked, how convincing do you find the research that concludes the later start time may have positive effects on student health, welfare, and academic performance? In this group, there was two groups of parents divided up in the survey. So current middle schooler parents said 59% believed it was very compelling, and 24% said somewhat compelling. So again, all the answers are in the blue and the green. Of the 4th and 5th grade parents, It was 61% found it very compelling and 25% found it somewhat compelling. And again, it's very minimal on those who didn't find it compelling. We asked the parents how credible they felt the research was. And that was, again, the numbers very much mirrored the previous question. They believed that it was credible. 87% total, 59% being very compelling, 28% being somewhat. Same mirrored with the 4th and 5th grade parents.
I can add my little factoid that I've learned here. There were 942 parents total. 542 of them were elementary. So about 542 elementary and then the remainder 400 like middle school. So it's pretty balanced, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask at this point? We will go on to some more research supporting our recommendation. One of the things that we chose to do was look at other schools that are in our athletic conference, and then also look at other schools that ODE states that we are the same or in a similar situation. What we did was we gathered their start times and dismissal times, their total instructional time per day, and their academic performance data. And as you can see, West Clermont Middle School had the earliest start time among any of the schools that we gathered data from. The next slide basically is our athletic conference schools. If you look, in the green is the start time, in the red is the end time, the dismissal time. So West Clermont is 7 o'clock a.m. We have a close with 7:10 in Lebanon, 7:12 in Whitten Woods. But you'll see Columbia Intermediate School, 8:50, Berry Intermediate School, 8:30, and just down the road, Nagel, 8:30 as well. If you look at the duration, we've got 7 hours and 15 minutes. We've got the longest duration with our athletic conference schools. So we start the earliest, and we do have the longest duration with those schools. On the next slide, the next two slides actually, you'll see the comparison with similar schools as compiled by ODE. If you look, there are 3 schools that have we have our duration time of 7:15. There are 3 schools that have a duration time of 7 hours and 20 minutes. And those are on this slide here. So we are still by far one of the longest duration and also still the earliest start time. The next slide that we have is comparing similar schools in terms of academic data. It's important to understand that this doesn't necessarily create a correlation or causation of later start times equals better performance, better scoring on tests, but we did feel that it was important to note the different schools and how their performance was higher and or lower based on their start time, their end times. You'll see attendance rate, chronic absenteeism. It's a lot of information that, like I said, is available to you if you really want to dig into it, but it is something that we did want to provide to you. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about some of the other factors that you would need to consider when you were choosing to make a change to the start time. Our obligation was to look at the research, to look at the surveys and the focus groups, and tell you what we think is in the best interest of students. Then we turn it over to you guys and say, this is our recommendation, see if you can figure out a way to make it work. Obviously, the biggest implication is financial, because of the busing that we would have to arrange and change, and the potential to go from a 3-tiered system to a 2-tiered system. We had Peterman come in, they've run a lot of numbers, they have a lot of information that I believe they can provide when you guys need it to review. We weren't asked to weigh that type of information, but we believe any discussion amongst district stakeholders would inevitably provoke those questions, and obviously provoke the questions amongst U5 as well. So in conclusion, the final recommendation that we have is for West Clermont Middle School to implement a start time of 8 a.m. with a dismissal time of 2:45 or 3 p.m. And we are available for questions, or if anybody wants to share anything. I know the three of us dominated, so all of these people up here obviously were very involved in our discussions, and I'd love for them to, speak up if they have anything additional that they'd like to share that we didn't necessarily get to cover in the presentation.
What I can do, Jen, is give the board just kind of steps from here, because I know it's always nerve-wracking when we're thinking like we're ending a school year and getting ready to start another one, kind of timeline a little bit. So I'll talk about that, and then we'll kind of debrief this process and truly give everyone a voice, because everyone sitting at this table, everyone who's even not here, were advanced participants in this process. They've done obviously a very thorough and complete job in looking at it from head to toe. We did say going into this process that it would be unlikely that whatever decision that this team would recommend would be something that could be put in place for the 22-23 school year. And so that remains true. Although this is the recommendation, it is not something that is being recommended for next school year. It's impossible. Peterman couldn't even activate and get the employees and all that in that amount of time. And we also have all the financial considerations to make. And so what I've put together is kind of a possible timeline that we can work through depending on where the board wants to take us. So as you all know, currently we have the transportation RFP out to bid, and Chuck will be bringing that forward to us at the next board meeting in May. And we have made a part of it an alternative bid related to this topic, because we knew that this process would be going parallel with the contract for transportation. We wanted to make sure that that Peterman was looking at all aspects. We also have a feasibility study. As Jenna mentioned, we looked at 2-tier systems versus 3-tier systems. Some of those were just financially out of the question for us. But as we dug in,
What do you mean by 2 and 3 tier?
oh, sorry, right now we have a 3-tier system.
With the buses?
With the
Okay,
buses,
that's
I'm
what I thought we
sorry.
were talking about,
Yes,
yeah.
a 3-tier bus system. And we looked at moving all elementary to one and then the middle school to another. And that was just cost prohibitive in a pretty big way. But as we started tweaking it, we looked at maybe modifying the start time of elementary slightly, modifying the parochial routes slightly. We have a window of about a half an hour that we can play with. So if we kept everything as it is today and changed the start time, there would be some cost prohibitive things. If we can tweak here and there with elementary and parochial, and I don't know if you want to speak to that. I know you did a lot of research in that area.
I contacted all of the parochial schools and private schools we bus to, and told them what we were doing and asked them what if. And we are allowed a half-hour flexible time with them. Not one of them said absolutely no. They'd all work with us. IHM would be the most difficult in Mount Washington, just because of the number of buses they have from other sites, but it's not out of the question.
So it made the potential of investing in this within reach, more than we ever imagined. And so what we kind of commissioned Chuck to do from there is to keep working with Peterman to get more and more precise with our enrollment and the routes, if we would, and so that we could start to study, what if we tweaked elementary a little bit, what if we tweaked these parochials a little bit, what might that end up being? And so he has them doing that research right now, and that will take us probably through June. And so what is a possible way to approach this is that Chuck and the transportation team would continue their work. We would bring the RFP forward and keep the board updated on our progress. By the time the next school year starts, we could bring awareness to the entire community about where we are in this process, what the educational impact is, and where the impact might be beyond middle school. And we knew this all along. Like when you're adjusting something in the middle of a system, there's going to be ripple effects. And so we definitely did not think it would be fair to just kind of drop this on everybody at the end of a school year and then expect a change. So this would be something that if it became important and the board was interested in it and it was financially within our realm of possibility, that we could study and look at probably making a decision whether this is going to go or be on hold in about October. Because for us, if we're gonna make any decision about the previous school year, it's important that all those things are kind of buttoned up before December. And this would give you as a board time to really see the impact of the 5-year forecast and see what happens. So your options could be, yes, this is important, you wanna do this, you see a financial way through this, or no, we don't see a financial way through this yet, and there might be implications with that. And so the power still rests in your hand to consider it, but it became tricky for this board. Whenever finances get into the conversation, they can stifle conversations. But we stayed committed to the charge, which was the commission of this group was to, is this what's best for kids? Should we be doing this? And so that's why they came forward tonight. So clearly, we've got some more things that we would need to do. An October timeline of a decision from you would be called for if that's the direction you want us to move in, so that everything could be in place, and communication could be in place, so that there would be no surprises for the 23-24 school year, if this is the direction we go. And so that would be up to you guys, so.
I
Any
have a
questions
couple
about that?
of questions. Well, I
Okay.
have a couple questions
Oh, sure.
before you went to that.
Perfect.
You had said early on that the recommendation would be to start at 8 o'clock, which would be an hour later, but then end 45 minutes later. You said there'd be no loss of instructional time. What about that 15 minutes?
I believe that's something that middle school principals were able to discuss with us, but I'm not sure of the exact.
I think that the specific minutes they were talking about was back to the core instructional minutes, specifically. Obviously, there would be subtraction, so that would be something to look at, but we were talking about just the movement in between. And to be honest, we did not spend a ton of time on the end time, it was more on start time. And so it was surveyed to, the reason it came up, and I think of Brenda when I think of this, it had to do with getting some information out there about families that have like a pickup at this school and then another pickup or a drop-off to make. And so we were trying to figure out, was there a certain time that would be more or less convenient for people as they think about the next kid on their list.
Yep.
And so that would still need to be looked at in more depth, but that really, we didn't focus on that. We just tested it a little bit just to see if there was something that we were overlooking.
Got it. The other question I had was related to athletics. You said that you included the athletic director.
Mm-hmm.
What time does the after-school athletics begin at most schools? It used to be 4 o'clock.
Yeah, games are at 4 usually.
So getting out at 3 o'clock, would that give us enough time to get to Little Miami and Lebanon and get the kids dressed,
Yeah.
fed a little bit something, and get to the game on
Yeah,
time?
we talked about, there would be
Yeah.
some more time for maybe study tables to get some homework done on the games that would be closer home, so there would be some like give on that. And then for the longer trips, sometimes it could cause students to have to be released 5-10 minutes early, like out of the school day. I mean, there could be a challenge here or there. And that was mentioned as, there were several middle schools, some who changed their start time and some who were also studying it like we were, that was a pretty, kind of a common response and something that is just kind of every now and then. It wasn't a way of doing business where athletics was always released early. It would just be for that one track meet in the spring that was way out.
It's kind of concerning a little bit because you can't guarantee that the kids aren't having language arts or math or something at the end of the day, and that would be their early release.
Didn't,
Gives me a little bit of heartburn.
didn't we say there was one school within the district that would create a problem for potentially? It was
That's what we
one
said.
school, I want
It
to
was
say.
just, it ended up being one. I can't
It was
remember.
one.
Thank you
And-
for
and-
refreshing my
My
memory.
ears were like this because I've got
All
four.
the athletics.
Yeah, we got 4 kids.
Yeah,
So
it was very minimal is all I remember.
there's one school where we may have to release early, and that's one, and that's a maybe. But I will say that in general, I think, and again, so I've got a 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade boy. So the logistics of this was definitely something that I was taking interest in. And what I will say that the way that it releases now, with it being between 2 and 2:15 when they get out, that is a more of a logistical nightmare as a parent, because then do you leave your kid unsupervised, unsupervised for the most part till the bus leaves for almost an hour and 15 minutes and just pray that they're doing something productive? Or do you take them home to rush right back type of thing? So the getting out between 2:45 and 3 and then the bus leaving 3:15 is, for me as a parent, way more of a relief than the hour and 15 minutes. So I would rather the Rob from Peter to pay Paul with it being, we start later so that it's more organized and more structured after school, as opposed to the alternative. And same thing, I think, even with, the weightlifting situation. I know that a lot of the middle schoolers now will walk to the high school. Well, the time that starts, it's much tighter and neater for them to get from point A to point B with the 2:45 or a 3, and maybe, and what we did say was one school, and that was maybe could create a 5-minute early-ish.
And Tammy, if you look at the one slide that looks at all the ECC
Yeah.
schools, and
Yeah.
Nagel gets out at 3:15. No, Winton Woods, 3:30. I mean, they're there's a lot more schools on this side of the loop than there are.
Yeah.
So,
And we did say, I think it was Kings, and that there would be a potential where if it was an away game at Kings, they could start the game at 4:30 as opposed to 4:15.
Yeah.
I mean, there were things to.
Some flexibility with it.
Yeah, and, the amount of kids that would be impacted by that negatively is a small percentage,
The last question that I had, and I promise the last question. If you suggest departing at 3 o'clock, was there any communication with the township or the county to see about traffic studies? Was that,
That's part of his, kind of his
Initiative.
next
Got
steps. If this was something that the board is saying, okay, you've got our attention, we are interested, we want to know more, that would be the next thing we would do to make sure that we weren't overloading that road with the dismissal of the high school
Yeah.
and the middle school in that window.
and having
the
walkers
ripple
from the middle
effects.
schools to the high school through all that.
Yeah, and that's where, that's when the ripples start happening. And so,
Yeah.
if we were getting serious that this is something you really want us to pursue, that was gonna be one of Chuck's next steps. Yep.
I connected with a traffic engineer from my county, but just again, what if, I really couldn't give him any specific information. So once we find out more time-wise, they would advise us.
Thanks.
Any other questions about the research, or before I kind of open it up just to talk about the process a little bit? Well, I just want to throw it back to you guys. This is our first ever Citizens Advisory Commission, and we tried to have a structured process, but be able to kind of take it wherever the information was taking us and where you want us to take it. So I don't know if any of you want to just speak to your experience, because this is something that maybe the board will, this is it was a 2-year gig for you guys to maybe look at other topics, and so we'll have to start working as a board to say, okay, what might be the next research topic of the day. But I thought it would be helpful. I know that Ryan came and he was able to see one of the meetings, and obviously Jim and Michelle are part of it. But if there's just something you guys would speak to in terms of the value of our time together, what it's meant to you, any thoughts, any feedback?
I thought it was a very good process. For me, I came in kind of against it right out of the gate, and then through our talks and through our research, it was nice because everybody had a voice. Nobody downgraded anybody for their opinion. We all had different backgrounds we were able to bring to the table, and it was nice. You could discuss those things out without someone getting infuriated. It just, to me, it went really well, really smooth. And it was, at the end of the day, we all kind of came up with the same. I went from a 1 to I think a 2 or a 3. So, but it was very good. I thought it was something that's worthwhile for the community to use to help the school in making future decisions when it comes to their kids.
Are you staff or are you
I'm
parent?
staff and parent.
Okay.
Why were you initially against it?
I come from a blue-collar background, so my first area where I go is to them. My day started at 6 o'clock in the morning, so if my kid was getting on the bus at 6 or maybe a little before, that was a worry I didn't have to have when I'm going to work. Obviously, it's changed a little bit now because I'm working for the school, but there is a lot of blue-collar in our area. So I wanted to think about them and make sure that they were heard. But at the end of the day, hearing about a kid getting on a bus at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to school, it's a little rough.
Well, and we did look at that too. One of the things we talked about was how, like, just the change from what the elementary time is now, what they've been used to, and then drastically changing is sometimes what the
Yeah.
angst is all about.
9:20 to 7:00.
Yeah, it's a big
That's a
jump.
huge jump.
Just to piggyback off of what he said, I was kind of in the same boat. I mean, I've been in the district for 13 years now, and kind of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, sort of, it's been working, but, I mean, I was like him, I was probably about a 1 in the beginning, because every meeting we kind of gave a number where we were, and I grew to a 4. It was very gradually, but just looking at everything and, hearing some of these stories. I mean, I'm one of the earliest teachers in the building in the morning. When I heard that kids were getting on a bus as early as, before I even get to school, that was, those and many other stories kind of moved me. I also think this was a good group to begin, conversations with other community members and grow these groups so that everybody feels like they have a voice moving forward in these other decisions the district might be making. It was very productive, respectful conversation among everybody, regardless of what role you were playing. So I thought that was very beneficial.
And honestly, I think this process was done correctly. I don't know if you guys know this, but in California, they actually passed a law without any feedback from the community, from staff members in schools, from students, and it was a disaster. And the fact that Superintendent Adams put together, or wanted us to all get together, because we are stakeholders in the community, and she wanted to make sure that everybody, every outlet, their voice was heard. And I think that we included and did it, we included everyone that should have been included and did it the right way. We did the parent surveys, we did the staff surveys, we did the student surveys, town hall meetings, focus groups. So we gave people a chance to be heard, and I think in the long term, especially the parents in this district, will be happy with the transparency and actually having a seat at the table.
I will agree with that. Also, I think that at the beginning, we set down an agenda, and it wasn't any one particular person's agenda. And we made a decision collectively the goal was to get it right and not necessarily as an individual be right. And I think that kind of set aside any angst, any potential animosity. And because we are, I mean, you can look at us and see how diverse we are. And as a result of that, I think at the end of the day, knowing that you've been heard and had a voice, even if it doesn't go exactly the way that you may think it should at the beginning, is going to be paramount. And because we represent different demographics in the community, I think it hopefully will snowball and get more awareness and bring more people to the table. And understand that this isn't just an overarching group of people that are just making decisions, that they're taking every step possible. And so at the end of the day, if they're not heard, at that point, you had a chance. You know what I mean? So I think that, again, piggybacking off of everybody, I was very much like him, blue collar, negative Nancy, Debbie Downer about this. But I think all of us came around to it once, everybody's voices were heard through this whole thing.
And I think reading through, to piggyback on what you were saying, when we read through the research, I mean, if you read through the research that was given in the packets, I believe you guys received, I mean, it's compelling. If we're serious about talking about, raising performance in our students, their mental health, all of that, it's like that I think is really important. That was probably one of the most important things to me, because we're not having the right conversations about our students, especially middle schoolers, their mental health, and this start time, how, the American Academy of Pediatrics talks about how it affects their bodies, their normal body clocks. This is just not about lazy middle schoolers who do not want to get out of bed at 6 in the morning and are staying up too late till 10 and 11. That's not what it's about. If you do any research into the medical aspect of it and their normal rhythms of their body clocks, they're just not getting the sleep they need, and it's greatly affecting them.
Yeah, we've looked at this a couple times. I'm on my 11th year on the board. We've looked at this a couple times, and we've we've had to go a different direction because of the finances. So I'm hopeful that we're in a different position this time, because the research that you are looking at now is the same research we've seen over the years. We just have been in a very different financial situation that I think that we may not be in right now. So I'm very hopeful.
Oddly enough, that was one of the biggest things that sparked up probably the most discussion was how much money is this gonna cost me?
Yeah.
Because, we're all community members.
Yeah.
And luckily with talks with Peterman and Chuck, they were able to come to a solution to where we wouldn't have to worry about extra space for more buses. Yes, there's gonna be the extra money for buses and for employees to drive those buses, but we're not looking at having to take and build another compound to house those buses, nor are we having to take and relocate from where we just put them.
Or cut staff or services.
Yeah, and that's what was one thing
to
that was
afford-
very important to this group is like, no one wanted to say yes until they knew what they would lose if they said yes. And so we had to like
correct.
really go back to the commission, and the mission of this team was to determine what's best for kids. And so so we stayed focused on that mission. And yeah, there are ripple effects, there are things we have to work through, but that's really, that's our part that we have to bring to the
And
table.
that was my biggest challenge
Yeah.
with it, because I've been in the district 23 years. I've had two sons who came through it, and they went through the period of time when it was one big building with the high school and the middle school. And that was my concern, if we
Yeah.
add the money in here, are we gonna do something that's not as beneficial to the kids in a different spot? But in the long run, this will help the kids
Yeah.
greatly.
And having two students that have gone through the districts, I had one that it gave him very much discipline. So as a sophomore in high school, he was working during the summer at 5:30 in the morning because he was used to that. I have another child that is, are you kidding me? Let's get up. So I've seen both, and I agree that the statistics are compelling.
Do you see a difference from previously, before the 7 o'clock thing came in? What time did you start? Was it 7:30?
When I went to Amelia High School, we started at 7:20. Then we changed it to, it was 7:30 at one point for the middle school, then we changed it back to 7.
Yeah. Do you notice the difference in the kids?
Yeah, I do.
I've been through it
Yes.
many times, and I noticed the difference. How about you, Brandy? From when we were at Amelia, we were 7:15, right?
Yeah, and then
Now
it's
seven.
yes, it's definitely, there's a
They're more
difference.
awake. That half hour makes a difference.
Yes, it does.
What time are you now? What time are you now?
7:45, but we were 7:10 last year because of COVID, and it was horrible. My first period would just look at me like I was from Mars.
My schedule changed, and so I have an encore class, my second class of the day, it's starting at 7:20. And the difference between the kids I taught first quarter last year, starting at 7, and the kids I teach now at 8:30 is huge.
I'll have a kid first period, even at 7:45, that's not a morning person. I'm a morning person, I wake up cheerful. But if I have them say fourth period now, it's like a completely different person.
Michelle or Jim, would you guys add anything about your experience as we are wrapping up our conversation?
I thought it was absolutely amazing to participate with the committee. You guys asked questions. I mean, I'm a digger. I dig and ask questions. You ask questions that there was not a stone unturned, and worked together as a team and talked and it was phenomenal. And other districts are looking at this thing that we started. And so you guys are groundbreakers.
Right, that was one thing that I wanted to share when Natasha was asking about the value of this group is, I work for a superintendent in a neighboring district, and he and I would discuss the work that we were doing here, and we have since started our own Citizens Advisory Commission at my district, and we're working on tackling some of the bigger issues that we see, working through the same type of group. So it's definitely a model that other districts are seeing and are appreciating and realizing the value of.
Yeah, I think this is a great asset. Especially seeing how diverse it is, and, yeah. It's awesome.
I know personally, I did attend a couple of your guys' meetings, and I appreciate the fact that you guys took the time to show up, the efforts that you put into it. the sacrifices that you made from being from your families to come to this. I mean, you guys really did a great job on this, and I truly appreciate what you guys did on this.
BJ, you want to say anything? You're not, you can't be quiet.
You're not usually quiet.
So you spoke more.
I mean, you guys have done just such a phenomenal job. Almost thought I was getting ready to say something like, oh, no. What was interesting, though, is the dynamics of the group on how we first started. So I didn't speak, and I was probably a 3 or 4 starting out, right? The ones who spoke up today are the 1s and 2s that started out. So there was a trend down, starting up and kept coming. So I didn't really need to say anything because they were already the ones who were on the other side of the fence, if you per se, you want to say, who are now, we all came together. And they felt so compelled that they spoke up today. So I didn't feel like I needed to.
Okay.
speak up.
It just felt weird with you being quiet. Okay. So I, again, just think the world of this group. The whole panel isn't here. We have some in the audience, so you guys can wave. Some great members that are not at the table with us that really dedicated a lot of time. And their 360 view of the district was really impressive to me. Because sometimes when you're working with certain stakeholders, like they can only see like their situation. And this group had a very like wide lens, and that was very much appreciated. So again, thank you guys for your time. We can continue discussing, and as I said, we've got, we'll need direction from you as to what you want to see happen next, and then we'll need to come up with topic number 2 for the fund, because as you all maybe have caught on to, the process that we followed with the CAC is much like what we've now put at scale with the town halls, to try to do this kind of engagement with a larger venue, with more diversity, and to tackle some of the larger issues that we have in the district. So again, thanks you guys so much. I really appreciate it. You can go.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you.
Where's Dr. Fultz? Is he behind me?
He's over there.
5.02.
Oh, you're ready. Okay, you're up next.
Personnel.
Good evening, members of the board, Mrs. Adams, Mr. Romano. In front of you is the personnel agenda for May 9th, 2022. On the agenda today, we have the retirement of Gary Tyndall. He has been with our custodial department for over 26 years, so we wish him well in his retirement. We also have the resignation of 1 administrator, 10 teachers, 1 custodian, and 3 paraprofessional aides. We have the proposed hiring of Heidi Stickney for our supervisor of special education, and we're using Cheryl Turner's retirement FTE to fill this vacancy. We also have the proposed hiring of Taylor Cox, assistant principal at West Clermont High School, and he'll be replacing Mike Kirk's vacancy. And I believe Mr. Cox is in the audience, so I'm hoping to introduce them all to you afterwards. We have the proposed hiring of 6 special education teachers, 2 pre-K special education teachers, 1 English as a secondary language teacher. We also have the proposed hiring of Catherine Hensley into the payroll coordinator vacancy, and Alex Rice, the middle school athletic director, replacing Tiffany Sawyer, resignment. Mr. Rice is not here today. He had a commitment, but he's going to be here on the next board agenda to meet everyone. On this agenda, we have the proposed transfer and reassignment of a few people here. We have Randy Gephardt moving from high school principal to the executive director of engagement and communication. We have Greg Potabom moving from the assistant principal at West Clermont High School to the principal of West Clermont High School. We have Thaddeus Highball moving from the Merwin principal to assistant principal at WT. Aaron Parker will be moving from the Holly Hill principal to the Merwin principal. Josh Young, who's currently assistant principal at Clough, will be moved to the Holly Hill principal position. Mr. Hudson, currently you see him on here as the coordinator of student services. On our February 22nd board agenda, we moved him to that, and so that's why it's on here. From that position to the West Clermont High School assistant principal position. And then we have Chris Perry. He's a West Clermont Middle School campus coordinator. Will be moved to a West Clermont Middle School dean position. We also have proposed approval for supplemental contracts. So you'll see for home tutors, Jessica Week is on there twice. The one is to finish out this school year, and one is to be there for the following school year. This includes the color guard and the assistant color guard for next year. Included in this agenda is the request for unpaid leaves of absence, the hiring of classified substitutes. It is that time of year again, so you see multiple school volunteer and student teachers there. And finally, we have the proposed stipend list approval for teachers working in elementary library support, student-centered learning ecosystem, co-teaching cohorts, summer preschool evaluations, and a high school extended learning program. So this concludes the review of the personnel agenda for your consideration.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion to approve the personnel agenda?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second, Mr. Chumley?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley,
Yes.
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney.
Yes.
5 yes.
Thank you.
Item 5.03 is the West Clermont High School graduates for graduation. I know as a senior mom, something that Mrs. Brinkman has her eye on. We are bringing.
He's on the list.
We are bringing a total of 605 graduates forward tonight, and we recommend that you approve the graduation candidates for the West Clermont class of 2022.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
All right, Mrs. Brickman, a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Patton, any discussion? Mr. Romano?
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay.
We have graduation planned for, what is it, the 27th? 27th at Centos. It's going to be streamed. Stay tuned for more, yes. Up next, we have Mr. LaFada sharing the summer operations project update. He has several things to let you know about, and then you'll be actually voting on something a little bit later on in the agenda related to HVAC.
I've got a slide presentation.
Do you need the clicker?
So all the projects I have to talk about tonight are the major projects and the most intricate projects that we'll deal with. There's smaller projects, obviously, like painting and other things I'm not going to bring to you tonight. First thing is roofing. I want to give you a history first. This district had previously worked with a roofing company that was, they engaged in co-op bidding. Co-op bidding is where you have one company that this district dealt with, and you would not have to get competitive bids because they were part of a state buyers co-op, which Dan and most people in Treasurer's Office business operations are familiar with. So when they assessed roofs in this district, they assessed roofs based upon the age of the roof and with some limited actual visual inspection of the roofs. So found out through an attorney just a couple weeks ago, our attorney, that these co-ops are no longer viable. You cannot use them. So in the meantime, I'm going to show you a roof here on the health source that's probably the worst roof in the business in our district and was not assessed previously as a bad roof. We would not have known about it. So the roof leaked probably a month ago into the doctor's office and some exam rooms. We had it repaired. The company that repaired it did an inspection for us. Jason and I asked them if they would do actual core cuts. So the area in the blue you see there were 6 core cuts done. That roof is right over the health source. Core cuts 4, 5, and 6 showed water. So there you go. That's 5. They cut down 6 inches into the roof, and the fiber board beneath the roof surface, the asphalt was wet, the deck was wet, and its ISO is it's a fiber that's between the deck and the actual roof. It was wet as well. So 3 core cuts were wet. So of all the roofs in the district, this is the roof we have the most worry about. It could fail. So tonight, there's a resolution to do urgent necessity and avoid bids to repair this roof and another roof on the middle school that's equally as bad. I want to say that I think I mentioned to you probably several board meetings ago, or Mrs. Adams did, about contracting with Elevar Architects to do a roofing study, a complete roofing study with infrared images. They haven't finished it yet, but they do concur that their findings on this roof were equally as bad. So we're going to go away from the company we previously were working with, this co-op company. And in the future, in the fall, we'll assess the roofs based upon the architect and independent inspectors' core cuts. And then we'll put out bids, RFP bids, September, October. And then Dan and I will open the bids with the lawyer in probably November, December, and award the bids in January. And we'll save money. We won't have to pay a middleman like had been going on previously. And I think we'll get more bang for our buck because we'll have a much more accurate assessment of the roofs. So this is bad. It will be fixed. It will be fixed for less money than that would have been proposed, because we're not dealing with the co-op company any longer. Any questions on that? And the urgent necessity, the reason you're doing that tonight?
Are there 2 areas in the middle school building?
Pardon?
2 areas in the middle school and the,
There's this area over the house source, and then this won't mean anything to you, but there's 2 sections, 13A and 13B, which are frayed along the sides and they're leaking. So those will need to be repaired this summer as well. In the past, I think the past 2 years, there's been new roofs, completely new roofs, put on 2 different sections of the middle school, kind of on the back side, over 2 large classroom hallways. They're 30-year roofs. I'm kind of reluctant to go with a 30-year roof on a building that you really don't know the future of. So the roofs we're getting will be a 20-year guarantee. It'll be a 10 to 15 roof with a 20-year guarantee, somewhat less. So there's money savings there. So all the roofing projects this summer will be at the middle school, and they'll begin in June, hopefully. Any other questions on this? Okay, thank you. All right, Holly Hill Century Playground. This was Erin Parker's idea. She secured a $16,000 grant from Casey's and a donation from Presbyterian Church. So there's 2 areas. The area on the right is her existing courtyard, which doesn't look anything at all like that. When we first saw it, there was trees in there, and it was disheveled. So Mark and the maintenance team have taken everything out of that courtyard on the right. They ground out 2 stumps this week. They're going to grade it, and then we'll put sod on it. Our maintenance team will do that. And then the picnic tables, as you can see, were donated by Holly Hill PTO. So it'll be an awesome area for those kids. The area on the left is the sensory playground. It's Erin's idea. She secured a grant for the equipment. So essentially, it's the location, if you look at the building from the parking lots on the right, and it will be attached to the existing playground. It's going to be a concrete pad that we're going to contract out to have poured. And a fence company, we have 2 bids on the fence. But our maintenance crew, our maintenance team, we will purchase the turf and install the turf. We had some exorbitant bids on turf. But we found out with Mark Hogg, I got to credit him, doing a lot of research, found some very, very favorable pricings on turf, and we can do it and install it, and it will have a warranty. So it's going to be awesome. It's all Erin's brainchild, and there it is. It's going to happen. Probably June or July we'll finish this up.
We often forget to keep track of all the money we're saving because of the talent we have on our team.
I was going to mention that. What Mark and his team are doing with this project alone, it's untold thousands of dollars that we're saving because they are expert and do their due diligence, their research, and come up with solutions to get this done. It's awesome.
Chuck, is this one with all the picnic tables, did you say that's a courtyard? So
It's
that
a
doesn't-
courtyard within the building, yes.
So you
Yes,
get in,
sir.
okay, so
Yeah.
that part's fine.
Yeah.
The playground, does that have any type of surveillance camera on it? Obviously, my mindset's always
Uh,
in a different
I
direction.
don't know, Erin, is that planned?
That's a nice,
Sure that it would face that particular area, maybe at some angle.
So the,
But it is right out in front, so people would see it as well.
well, the two things I think about is that's very nice equipment and stuff, and over time, whether you get somebody that would go up there and do some type of criminal damage or something, that would essentially go unsolved if we didn't have some type of surveillance cameras, because you have a whole bunch of neighbors around there. So again, not to mention just the safety piece too, if somebody got hurt on it, but, so just food for thought.
If they don't cover, we'll work on a solution to get it covered.
Yeah,
With
I'm sure it's
Larry.
an easy fix.
Okay. Any questions on this? Next, West Clermont Middle School, we met with a team, Tiffany's team, Ellie and a bunch of people here, Mark Hall and I, and we walked the building and they directed us to several rooms that need to be changed. Obviously, the middle school is old and some things need to be refurbished. So the first thing that's gonna happen is some rooms are going to get internal doors, and we have to get the okay, the blessing of the fire chief. So we're gonna meet with the fire chief next Tuesday. And if he's okay with this plan, then again, Mark Hall and his team will implement the changes that Tiffany and their team, the teaching and learning team, want to have in these rooms. One of which is, I didn't even know existed, to be honest with you. It's an old shower room area in the middle school that was converted decades ago probably into business or offices and maybe an instructional site, I don't know. Storage now, but there's one internal big room and then two small rooms off to the side. It's a nice space. It's old ratty carpet, very old tile in the classroom or in the restroom. That requires no fire chief inspection at all. So our maintenance team is going to do that. They're going to replace the tile. We're getting a bid on a carpet to take up the existing carpet, new carpet placed on there. There's a couple of doors need fixing. I think an HVAC vent that needs to be moved, but our team can do that. So that will give them, I don't know, 3 really nice new spaces in the middle school. So I appreciate Tiffany and Ellie inviting us out to look at that. The other areas, the special ed rooms that they want kind of redesigned. Once, I don't anticipate any changes with the fire chief. I think we'll be able to go with that. So once those are done, those also are going to be very, very nice modern spaces for the middle school teachers and the students. This will, if the fire chief says yes, then this will start probably second week of June. All right, parking lot, this is standard, parking lot repairs. It's an ongoing list that actually Lance started several years ago. The parking lots this year will be Amelia and Withamsville. The reason I put it up here is we're going to tag this with the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back. With Merwin Modular Project. In meeting with zoning and the fire chief for Pierce Township, we have been asked, and we will install an additional fire hydrant from the road, getting an estimate on that, and we'll have to widen the fire lane. And then Thad asked, since the modulars will be sitting on the asphalt, they'll lose their asphalt playground. He asked for a playground, an asphalt playground, 40 by 40, down near the current mulch area. The playground will have basketball court and 2 tetherball courts. So the reason I bring this up with the asphalt is the Elk Asphalt gave us a very favorable price to all these projects at one time this summer, since they'll have their equipment and the asphalt and the excavators here in the district. So he actually is going to throw in 2 tetherball courts because he anticipates having enough asphalt to do that. So it's nice working with them on this project. It's a big project, but it's been really nice getting his input on what we can and can't do. To finish up on Merwin, we're going to repair the soccer field right behind the mulch playground. We're going to add new playground mulch to that playground. And it's not on here, but the old backstop, it's got holes in the fence that's further back on our property. We're going to replace that backstop with new fence and new posts to make it, it's dangerous now, to make it usable so they could play baseball, softball, kickball, tetherball, or wiffle ball, whatever back there. So the need that Thad brought up was the need for more playground space with the modulars taking up so much space. So we're going to do that for them.
Is that the school's fence?
Pardon?
Is that the school's fence that's back there?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Okay, let me go back to.
HVAC.
HVAC. So, again, just like the roofs, maintenance team thought, especially Terry, our HVAC maintenance person, that we really have not had an adequate PM service in this district for all HVAC units. So we did bids, we didn't have to do an RFPA because it's repairs. Called the attorney to make sure we were okay. We had three companies give us bids. We're gonna go with a local company that also does Union Township. It's on the agenda tonight to do a PM contract with them. And what they will do, they will do preventive maintenance on all of our units. And that includes some belts, but it includes inspections, lubrication. We'll do it 4 times a year, every building. That will give us, number one, a heads up on things that might be a problem for us so that Terry can address those rather than have to work from behind all the time. Something breaks and then we got a crisis. It also will extend the life of these units. So I'm going to read you, this may surprise you, the age of these units in 3 buildings. Merwin, Hilltop, that's Reading. Merwin, Holly Hill, and the middle school. When we did an evaluation of the district, all of the district's HVAC, rooftop units and air handlers, company came in and they did a thorough evaluation and they looked at every piece of equipment and gave us dates. So here we go. Holly Hill, all of Holly Hill's air handlers are 1981. They have room units in that building. In the new wing, I don't even know what that means, but the new wing room units, the teachers cannot control their environment. If the room's too hot, they have to open a door. If it's too cold, Lord help you, you gotta shut the door. So we have a solution. It's 5 figures, but they have to be fixed. It's not a long-term fix, but it's a fix, maybe a 5 to 10 year fix on these units. The most dangerous in terms of failure are these 1981 air handlers. Merwin, all of the air handlers in Merwin's are pre-1990. Now let's get to the middle school. This has the most equipment in it. So there's 8 air handlers in that building. 4 air handlers are 1996, 1997, and then listen to this, 4 air handlers at middle school, 1961. What? Yeah. Wow. Rooftop units at the middle school, 10. There's 10 rooftop units. The newest rooftop unit in the middle school is 1999. So they've been working. There's been a lot of repair. To date, 2 weeks ago, we had spent on break fix, just these 3 buildings, break fix kind of stuff, the middle school being the most expensive, $178,000 in break fix stuff. So hopefully, not hopefully, it will. The PM agreement that's on the agenda tonight will save a lot of money because they're going to address all these units, do whatever it takes to keep them working. And then our guy, Terry, who's HVA certified, he is our guy on site. He fixes an enormous amount of these units. No labor charge, it's just the parts because he's doing it. So that'll free him up to be more proactive as well and work directly with this company. So
Could we have problems with parts on some of the, getting parts for some of these
we had the
items?
supply chain issues, we did have
Well,
parts.
supply chain, but
Oh
also
my gosh,
just
with
the.
these,
age of the
there are no
equipment.
parts.
Okay, just wanna make sure.
There's none.
Okay.
There's none. I mean, if one of those, here's the frightening thing, in the middle school, if one of those, the middle school has the largest air handlers, as you can imagine. So if one of those air handlers does break and we cannot replace, we cannot fix it, then that's a 6-figure probably solution to get that thing fixed. And that's not counting labor, that's probably parts. So we're rolling the dice. So the only way to avoid catastrophic failure on our end, I thought, with my team, was to get a PM company on site this summer. So they'll start this summer. Our head custodians change all the filters. That's already built into the program, but they don't have the talent to PM, and neither does Terry, really. So I think this is a good solution. Hopefully it'll buy us a lot of time and allow decisions to be made within the district on what's next for these buildings. That concludes my presentation, all the joyous news. You have any questions?
Mine, you just cracked out at 15 years.
Thank you for being forward-thinking and coming up with the preventative maintenance, because,
Well, you're welcome.
I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer.
It's the right thing to do at this time, in my opinion.
Later in the agenda, you guys will be voting on that contract as well as,
Yes.
what else?
Urgent necessity.
Urgent necessity.
And then that'll allow us to do what our guys do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Up next, another dedicated group of individuals that have been working, I don't know, since October, probably, on math course of study, probably multiple times every month. We are fortunate to be able to invest a sizable amount of money into resources and implementation of this math course of study based on some of the additional funding that we've gotten. And this will be the first time in over a decade where we've been able to take a course of study process through this very rigorous approach that looks at everything from pre-K to 12 and reassesses, realigns, and reimagines, I guess. So at this time, I'll just turn over to Ellie and her team. And thanks you guys for coming tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So we have a new cast of characters here around the table. So we have tonight some of our instructional math coaches, elementary staff, middle school staff, members of our teaching and learning team. We're just really thrilled at the opportunity. Did I skip somebody? Oh, and more back here. Thrilled to have the opportunity to share with you tonight a little bit about our process and to present for you for approval our math course of study, including our instructional resources. As Natasha mentioned, this is the culmination not just of this year's worth of work, but because we have not had the financial resources to purchase instructional materials like widespread, there have been some, I think, intended but also unintended positive consequences that have come from that have really taken place over the course of the last 4 to 5 years, where our teachers have, and actually many of our teachers that are here today at the elementary level were part of kind of the creation of our own instructional framework and resources that really allowed for teachers to deepening their understanding of the math standards, to really roll up their sleeves and take a lot of time, spend a lot of time really thinking about instructional resources and best instructional practices to support the needs of students. And so we've really been trying to build on that work that has happened over the last 4 to 5 years, and to really solidify it, to align that work from preschool through 12th grade, and to be able to present to you, to our community, to our parents, and to our staff kind of the culmination of that work. And so tonight we're going to have Dr. Jessica West, who's she, along with Elaine Giorgio, they were our co-leaders of our math course of study process, and so they're going to share some information to you tonight before we request approval of just what that process has entailed and what our final product looks like, along with Nancy Edmondson, who happens to be my sister. I'm super excited. I was hoping I was going to get babysitting duties, but it looks like Josh Young has been tasked with that right now. Renee, that's that was going to be the best part of my night. Renee Schumacher, who works as an intervention specialist at the middle school, along with our elementary math coaches, to just share with you about that process. So, y'all want to take it away?
So just to add on, we spent the last 8 months working on this work together with a group of 46 preschool through 12th grade math teachers, did elicit surveys from students, from teachers, and in focus groups. So what we are going to share today has been touched by many people. And we are so proud and so excited to have this opportunity today to share this with you. So that being said, we are going to go into, there we go, the West Clermont Vision for Mathematics Instruction, and you will receive a 94-page document that's really detailed. This is what we need to start with, and I usually don't read things out loud to adults who can read, but it's so important we need to read it. So at West Clermont Local School District, our portrait of a graduate serves as our North Star by pointing our students towards college and career readiness and beyond. We recognize that mathematical reasoning and understanding are necessary components of this. Every learner deserves equitable access to evidence-based and high-quality instruction and resources, and teachers with high expectations for learning. So this statement serves as the platform for this work. Again, it's aligned with our portrait of a graduate. Here we have just segments of the mathematics program philosophy, which is very much aligned with the NCTM's philosophy, which is the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. It's evidence-based, it's best practice. And so in order to create high-quality experiences for students, we adhere to our district mission, commit to excellence with every learner, every day, every way. And as I noted, these principles come from NCTM, and just to highlight them, high-quality teaching and learning practices, access and equity, a powerful curriculum, appropriate tools and technology, meaningful and aligned assessments, a culture of professionalism. So this builds on that foundation of the vision. We also have a statement on financial literacy. These are just excerpts from that statement. We know financial literacy was a topic that was definitely noted in our survey of community, and we wanted to make sure we honored what our students need to be college and career ready. So financial literacy equips financial citizens with the ability to make sound financial decisions and understand the impact of those decisions. Serves as a vital component within our West Clermont portrait of a graduate, in which students gain the knowledge needed to make lifetime informed financial decisions, ultimately supporting graduates to live the lives they seek to live. And again, you'll note the reference to the portrait of a graduate. It's very intentional. We want to make sure our work is cohesive, it matters, and it has meaning to all stakeholders. All students in grades K to 12 have financial literacy connections embedded in their math courses. These topics are identified with a $sign in the math course of study document. So in that lengthy document, you'll receive the vision, the philosophy, the statement on financial literacy, and pre-K through 12 graded course of study, which really outline the critical areas of focus of learning for the grade level. And you'll note a $sign with each grade level, noting a intentional connection to financial literacy that's cohesive, and that's a natural opportunity for learning. All students are required to take financial literacy as freshmen through our social studies department and have access to additional advanced financial literacy courses as electives.
Yeah, and I'll just note that that was one of the things that our course of study team sort of talked about, that there are two sides of a coin related to financial literacy. There's understanding like the mathematical components of financial literacy. Then there's also understanding like the human behavior parts that align with financial literacy, the decisions that we make, the motives behind decisions, those sorts of things. And so, you know, we're wanting to, and as we get to a place where we're working on revising our social studies course of study, financial literacy will obviously be an interdepartmental and an interdisciplinary connection that we'll continue to make between math and social studies.
So this really outlines the math course of study engagement timeline, and we we are grateful to have two of our members, Nancy Edmondson, who teaches grade 4 at Clough Elementary, and also Renee Shoemaker, who is a intervention specialist at the middle school. We've asked them here to really talk about their experience through the perspective of a math teacher on math course of study, and to kind of talk us through this outline. So I'm going to hand it over to our friends down the way.
I'll start.
Great.
So essentially, I was just going to kind of go through the process. We started with what Elaine had pointed out, like creating a district philosophy statement for mathematics teaching and learning. And then from there, we went on to creating a vision for what mathematics instruction should look like and sound like in a mathematics classroom, which included high-quality teaching and learning practices. So then from there, we surveyed staff and students to help us evaluate our current strengths and areas for growth in the mathematics classroom. And then we came together to evaluate different resources that would align best with our vision and our philosophy statement, and then our expectations for math instruction. So essentially, we collaborated, we evaluated, we reevaluated, and we came together to kind of ultimately decide on a resource. We all had a voice, and the voice was heard. I believe in the process. I think it was a great process. We all came together, pre-K to high school, and we're proud and excited for the future of West Clermont with involving math. So this is my 16th year of teaching, and I've seen kind of it all. I was part of the framework, developing the framework, and I really got the opportunity to dive deep into, I was teaching third at the time, third grade instruction, math instruction, and I believe in, what we do in West Clermont. I think we have amazing teachers, and our math framework is awesome. I love the structure that we have in our classrooms, and I think that this resource is just going to give kids so much opportunity and really develop them as math thinkers. I often tell my kids, we're thinkers in the math classroom, we're not math doers, and I think this resource is really going to help our students continue to be those deep math thinkers. And I'm excited, and I'm proud. I brought my kids over to West Clermont this year because I believe in it so much. So I think it's a great school district, and I'm proud to be on this committee. So that's all I have. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I was honored to be a part of the committee and to kind of represent. I wasn't the only intervention specialist. We had intervention specialists from all age ranges. But it was nice that that segment of our population was thought of and included in this whole process. And to Nancy about our collaboration, when we were looking at the data and the survey results, we came into the room, but we were all mixed up. So we weren't in our little niches of, one elementary school or just the middle school teachers or just the high school teachers. So it was very helpful to get to know the elementary teachers and how their classrooms work and operate, and kind of look at where our students are progressing as they come through the whole program. So I found that really beneficial. And then when we got to the point in December, when we were writing our course outlines, we did really focus then on our area. But it was nice that we had that collaboration, so we knew, I, in my specific example, worked on 7th grade, but I had talked to 6th grade teachers, so I knew where they had come from and what their foundation was and what they needed to know before they got to 7th grade. But we'd also talked to 8th grade teachers, and we knew what we had to do in 7th grade to get them ready for 8th grade and beyond. So I just felt like that collaboration amongst us as a whole team was super important. And our course outlines are based on the state standards, so that does follow that progression. But then this way, the district is aligned from preschool all the way through 12th grade. So we're just very coherent and consistent as our students move through the district.
So as Nancy
Nancy alluded to, the math course study team is very excited to bring to you today their recommendations for instructional resources from kindergarten through 12th grade. You will notice that from kindergarten up to geometry, we have selected illustrative mathematics, which is a problem-based curriculum that gives students the opportunity to experience math and investigate math and really understand the why behind the math that they're learning. It is an open education resource, and so what that means is that different publishers can access the resource and then develop it as their own product. And so in addition to looking at illustrative math and I'll move forward and then move back here. So in addition to looking at illustrative math as the resource that we want to use, K through geometry, we also looked at whose iteration of that resource was most appropriate for that grade band of students. And so in K through 5, we selected Kindle Hunt, which is primarily a paper-based curriculum. In 6th grade, we transitioned to using Kindle Hunt along with Zern, which is an online resource that allows students to have more like computer-based learning, but then also more interactivity with the math. And it's also a supplemental resource that they used as 5th graders. So they come into 6th grade, they're entering, at least for this next year, they'll be entering into a new curriculum, but they're using a resource that they've used previously. Then from 7th grade through geometry, we've selected Desmos. It's just a more sophisticated online tool, but it's still delivering the same illustrative math curriculum. In Algebra 2 and above courses, we've selected a resource called Agile Mind. This is a resource that is our teachers who teach those advanced level math courses where sometimes it's difficult to do math on a computer at that advanced level. They were very impressed with the way that that resource was delivered. It has a lot of problem-based activities, a lot of real-world connections connecting specifically to like workplace situations or ways that students might use math in future careers. It also has a lot of animations and interactive simulations. Both of these resources that we have selected meet the expectations on EdReport, so they get the highest rating that EdReport offers for both of them. There are a few courses that we are not purchasing a resource. One of them is Mathematical Applications, which was previously referred to as Algebra 3. That is a course that we will be sunsetting at the end of the 22-23 school year. So we don't need to purchase anything for this 1 year. The teachers have resources available to finish out that course next year. The reason we're able to sunset that course is because we are bringing in 2 new courses, which I believe was introduced in previous meetings, the Advanced Quantitative Reasoning and the Data Science Foundations, which are the Algebra 2 equivalent courses that the Ohio Department of Education is offering pilots on, and we're participating in one of those pilots. And so they are providing the course materials for us, so we don't need to purchase anything for that.
Is the mathematical application sometimes called senior math?
I believe it has been informally referred to as that, yes. One of the things that was really important to the team as we looked at resources was how or what was embedded in the resource to support families in understanding how their children learn math now and how that might be different from how they've learned math in the past. The illustrative math resource provides online resources for families as well as resources that teachers could print out and send home that for every unit, there's information about what their children are learning and how families can support them at home. And then I'm going to turn it over to Elaine to talk about the elementary report cards.
So with the elementary report card, this provides us opportunity to really re-examine what information we are reporting to families. critical areas of focus standards to inform math instruction will be identified to make report cards easier to understand. Currently, you have a report card. It's very lengthy. You have all of the standards. And so looking at that, it can kind of be confusing when you look at the entire grade level of standards and you're looking at your child's quarter. We want to make sure that we have a report card that informs parents and really is data that we can use to support student learning. So look for that. The other point is student performance on these critical areas of focus will be reflected on elementary report cards, and that's exactly what it should be, a report of how students are progressing over time, so.
And so now, like, kind of jokingly say, like, now the real work begins. Like, we've done all of this work over the course of the last, I believe, 8 months, Elaine said, with this group of 46 teachers. And it was a lot of work, but the real work is implementing it in the classroom. And so this summer, that will begin with the math course of study team working to align the resources that we are recommending with the course outlines. And developing scope and sequence documents that teachers can use to be able to use the resource to teach our course outline, which is aligned to Ohio standards. And then training staff on the implementation of the resource and supporting, with the support of trainers from those resources, as well as our district math coaches that we have sitting here at the table with us. And then just leveraging the ongoing implementation support that we will have access to as well.
Yeah, and so really, like, our course of study is, I mean, it's really like a 5-year process. We'll be working on implementation and refinement and revisions until it's time to, examine resources again. And so that really is, that's the exciting work, that's the really challenging work, and that's really the work that's going to continue to have an impact and to make a difference for kids.
I have a question for the teachers. One of the things that when I would go around town, people were very excited about the changes, but also nervous that we were going to throw everything out that we had created, kind of throw the baby out with the bath. And I kept assuring them that that wasn't your thinking. So can you do that publicly now? Is that true?
Yes,
Like,
that is
okay, I
very
haven't been-
much true.
Okay, very good. So just talk about that a little bit, because that's an important piece.
Yes. I think it's so important that we understand that, like, this is a resource that's gonna help us teach what we need to be teaching, the standards, and that we need to make sure that we have, that's in our forefront. Like, we need to know that, like, what we need to be teaching these kids, and that, we're not just, opening up a book and starting on page 2 and ending on page 94. And that we, have spent so much time on what the classroom really should look like, and that we need to have student discourse, and we need to have kids answering all kinds of different questions. They need to be writing, they need to be communicating and collaborating and working together, and this resource will definitely help us get them there. But the structure of the classroom very much needs to be that. We're still going to continue those small groups, and, we spent so much time on that framework, building that framework about what that structure will look like, and, we need to have, like, student discourse, and we need to have, small groups happening, and kids need to be working together, and classrooms are not quiet classrooms. Needs to look like an Apple store. People often describe my room as an Apple store. Just like a lot going on, that's where the magic happens.
And not the apples you eat, but like the computer apples.
Yes,
Right, yeah.
yes.
Okay, just make sure.
Yes, a computer Apple store.
Yes,
There was
okay,
busy,
yeah. Clarifying.
lots of
Yes,
things happening. And students are the ones in control of their learning, and we're there to, help them along the way. But, this resource is, I'm excited for this resource. But knowing that all this hard work that we built into what the structure of the classroom should look like is not going away, that's, it continues to stay there. We just have a resource now.
Can I chime in? Because I do want to agree with Nancy on that, because we've done some great things over the past couple of years with the instructional guides that we built. And I really do think that it gave teachers the opportunity to really understand where they're at and understand the math that needs to happen in the classroom. And so with this resource, we didn't want teachers to say, oh my gosh, I've been doing this great, this has really been working well, and now I can't do that.
Right.
No, this program is going to be a great program to bring in and still be able to embed in some of those great things that we have been watching happen in our district over the last couple of years. And getting our kids to even be deeper thinkers than we ever thought they could be. Because I really think it will get them to that love of learning math. That's what we want. We want kids, when they walk into the math classroom, to say, oh, I can't wait to get to math class today. And that's what I really think we're gonna get to see.
And then to share that love
Right,
with others.
right.
Yeah, I think that through all of this, we're really, just like we want to increase student agency, we want students to move from being compliant, like just doing what people tell them to do because they're telling them to do that. And we want to really work towards deeper levels of engagement and empowerment for students. It's that very same thing that we want for our teachers. And so this resource, we believe, isn't about teachers having to comply because like somebody with some like clipboard who's gonna like walk around checking to see if they're like saying the same thing on the same day at the same time. It's not about that. It's really about fully equipping our teachers with the skill sets and the mindsets and the tool sets to be the very best educators that they can be and to be fully empowered to make really wise instructional decisions for students. And we believe this resource is really setting them up. It's adding another tool to that tool belt that can really help to continue them in that progression as well. And so we're just really thrilled, and we're so grateful for the financial opportunity to make this investment, and we're so excited to see the impact of that.
Well, and I'm putting you guys on the spot. Speaking of the investment, you guys are coaches. You're going alongside teachers, and so sometimes people don't understand in education, what does that really mean? You're part of the investment package, so you want to talk a little bit about what you see going forward, something you're excited about. Because I know you've invested a lot of time and thought. And I'm putting you on the spot.
So one thing I'm excited about is to have that common language. Oftentimes when in coaching, we'll hear the same topic being discussed, but teachers will use different vocabulary because of the way they were taught, or some resource that they happen to find used it, like the commutative property of addition. You can hear it called up to like 5 different things, and then the kids are confused when the next grade level teacher calls it something different. So with this resource, it'll help to align us with that vocabulary, also using similar tools and models when we're trying to teach different concepts. If you're constantly showing like, oh, let's use this strategy, but the teacher the year before didn't use that strategy, it makes it a little bit harder for the kids. So having one resource that provides strategies that look consistent all the way up is gonna be a game changer in and of itself. And then we'll be there to continue to support the things that we've been working on for what a great math lesson looks like. So this is a resource, but the teacher's still the difference maker. So we still have to make sure that what they're doing is engaging, and that they don't just, like Nancy said, start at page 2, into page 94, but that they actually look at what the kids are doing and make changes spur of the moment when you need to. Make refinements. If a kid's not getting it, what can you do to help that kid attain mastery of that standard? So that's something that will help teachers to continue to do, and just be able to have that common language will also help for collaboration, not only within building grade levels, but also across the district as well.
So I've been here a really long time. So this is my 28th year, and what I love about this program coming in is that we are going to get the training that we've never had before, because not only are we getting training from the vendor, but then we are getting training, and then we will be there for the teachers, daily to reinforce and help that, which we've never had before. So it's exciting that there's going to be so much help and so many resources that they can go to, and together is so much better than just by themselves. And I like that it's a foundation from K through 12 and maybe even pre-K eventually. So that's what we're looking forward to, and that's what I hope, can't wait to get started next year.
Well, we're getting started on Wednesday, like a day after tomorrow, so we're not letting the grass settle under our feet at all.
And I'm gonna tag on to Michelle's, because that's how I feel also. I've been here a long time, and we've had programs that we've brought in, and as a classroom teacher in the past, you were handed your program, you went home, you looked at it, you researched it. I'm looking at now kind of like this preventative plan. Like, we're giving our teachers a program, we are that preventative plan. We are there to support them, to keep an eye on them, to help them, to guide them, and to be there so that these teachers don't feel like they're doing it all by themselves. We have a plan set in place that's going to make them be successful with rolling this out and making it super successful for their kids. And so just knowing that the teachers now feel like, okay, I don't get this, I don't understand this, hey, I'm calling Beth, or I'm calling Michelle, or I'm calling Mindy, is that resource we didn't have before. And so it's a very valuable resource for the teachers to feel successful, and we all want to feel successful when you start something. And so to set them up for that ahead of time is, I think, extremely valuable. So,
Speaking of extremely valuable, I knew it fourth grade this year, so Beth, she's helping me a lot with all her, all her
many
things that
years.
she's already created. I'm like, ooh, let me see what Beth does.
I was gonna say that you
But
talk
it is
about.
a team. That's the
It
thing
is-
about
yeah, it's
education.
amazing. We're all
It's
better
never-
together,
You
yeah.
should never be on an island. Education, I don't care what grade, and even when you spoke about it, the importance of us coming together as a K-12 group was very informative. Because I do think actually not K, preschool. So when we had a preschool teacher with a 12th grade teacher sitting next to each other, you talk about two opposite ends of the world, but coming together to have a common conversation about what math instruction should look like in West Clermont, and it was a great conversation.
Well, I was gonna say that it sounds like that's critical to the success of the teacher, to have that, because as you move around from grade to grade, you have that same structure. And that's just gonna make you successful regardless of the grade that you're teaching.
We don't want any teacher to ever feel like they're on an island. They should never feel like they're on an island. We are the island, and what's the phrase? It takes a village to raise a child? It
Yeah.
takes a school to build everything, so.
And we're also poised at a systems level to implement, because we have common planning time for teachers, and we know John Hattie says teacher collective efficacy is the highest indicator of student growth and achievement. So we're providing teachers with that time to plan and reflect and, really grow together independently, but also collectively. So I just have to affirm every stakeholder that has put their heart into this work, and I know we're gonna see good things ahead.
Do you feel like that the new resource is gonna have that flexibility to, you always have, you have your students who are working, way down the road, and then you have your students who aren't, they're just not getting it. Do you feel like that there's flexibility in there to, adapt and address those, the highs and lows?
It is a constructivist curriculum. That means it's problem-based, open entry, so a problem is posed, and it assumes students' strengths, and it tries to leverage student thinking. So it usually starts off with a problem, and then students will come together and say, what do they notice, what do they wonder? Everyone is automatically engaged in the learning. From there, if you see how the curriculum is written, it kind of scaffolds that thinking over time. It tells the teacher what to look for, what to ask. And I've seen it at different grade levels, and I'm impressed with the engagement, the discourse, and I see potential for all students being successful. When we make decisions in an integrated system, we make them for all students in mind. So thank you for asking that important question.
Yeah, Michelle, I would also add that one of the things that we've looked at is instructional time and time available for instruction. Because even the best instructional resource, if not given the appropriate time and the time that it's designed for, we're already setting ourselves up for frustration and, for lack of success potentially. And so that was one of the factors that I think ultimately, with lots of things being equal between kind of our two top resources, when you look at time, we wanted to ensure that there was not only time for the resource to be utilized as it was sort of built, but also kind of additional time to be responsive to the needs of students on all ends. Those who may need additional support and those who need deepening of their learning. and everything in between. And so I think that was a critical part of our ultimate decision, was really, as Nancy talked about, time to allow for small group instruction, time to allow for teachers to be able to respond to knowing their students well. And so that was something that we were intentional about.
And ultimately, the teacher is the difference maker, you know? You don't wanna be like a robot, you know what I mean? Like, you wanna be, you know, excited.
The art and science
like-
of teaching, like it's
Yeah,
about both of those things.
right.
Yeah.
I could quickly add my perspective on this. Middle school uses the Desmos program, so that is a computer-based lesson. So all the students have their Chromebooks and the lesson is on there. But the teacher has the control to block the slides so that students can't work too far ahead. But yet, if you have a student who does need a few more minutes, the teacher can release them and she can move on, but maybe the student still gets those few minutes on that slide so they can finish that discovery that they were working on and not get frustrated that they didn't get to finish. Or, if you have a co-teacher in the room and maybe you're still working with a student, you can continue that so that they can get to that aha moment and not lose it, and then, catch up with the rest of the class. So it can be very individualized, and, which is really nice, that you can kind of, as we said, start where the kids are, and the teacher is the key to that. They can say, you know what, we don't need to do the first 2 slides today because we kind of got that yesterday. So we'll just, jump right into the next lesson on slide 3, and that manages our time within today's instructional period much more efficiently.
I think this resource will help us to get to know our students a little bit better, to know their strengths and areas for growth, so that we can then make those great decisions for them.
So tonight we are, I'm officially requesting your approval of our math course of study, as well as the instructional resources outlined.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Mrs. Delaney, a second.
Second.
Mrs. Brinkman, any discussion? Mr. Romano?
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley,
Yes.
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
5 yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Yeah, very well done, thank you. I'll keep my comments brief tonight, just wanting to let you know that the REACT survey that we did received over 300 participants, and so we got a lot of good data from that we used at the most recent town halls. In the Holly Hill and Willowville combined, we had over 200 people participate with us, from students to parents to community members, partners in education who were there with us. And we are currently curating all the data, so we are going to make it visible and live for everyone. There's a lot of questions that came through the FAQs that we are refining right now. And once I have that, I will post it on the West Clermont Town Hall button. All the links will be there, so you'll be able to see pictures, video streams, as well as all the documentation that we'll be using. And kicking off later this week, we will start with REACT number 2, which is designed to take the conversation just a little bit deeper, a little bit further. We're hoping to be able to curate some new ideas and build on the momentum from the town hall, so we can keep kind of pressing our questions, digging deeper, challenging status quo. And we'll use all that data that we collect now in May, and then something else we'll do in August to inform our September 22nd town hall. And so this is an iterative process that will continue to grow and build on each other. And over time, in between the big events, we'll also have small events, small focus groups, tours of the buildings. So, Chuck brought out a lot of data today that people just might not know. And that's one of the things that we did learn in our early town hall experiences, that people have no idea some of the conditions of some of our buildings, especially Holly Hill, Merwin, and the middle school. And so we're just going to continue to take the community through this process. And we got great feedback from the event, and people are interested in knowing, like, what's the end game? Where's this going? And the reality is, we'll take the information about transportation, facilities, wellness for staff and students, and safety, educational programming, and the configurations of our school, what our purpose of school is in our design. we'll bring all that together and have recommendations going forward for the board, so that we can ensure that the Portrait of a Graduate, the dream that we have, is resourced and well supported. And so that'll be it. So it'll be a long-term process. We'll wrap up our work this year and continue it well into next year and beyond. So it's not a checkbox and we're finished. We've got a lot of rolling up our sleeves and more heavy work to do. So that's our status. It's May, it's very busy, things are crazy around here, but we are pressing hard and finishing strong. Our team has led a great effort to thank our staff and really show value on our staff. You'll notice maybe a common outfit that everybody has on today. T-shirts were our latest, so thanks to many of our partners that Mr. Overby has been working with just to bring a little something to unite us all together. What I love tonight is just hearing them say it. Like, I think they said the word together like 10 times. I didn't do hash marks, but that's really what we're all about. And we value our staff and are just taking a little bit of time every week until the end of school just to say thank you for your efforts and do everything we can to create a great climate and culture here in West Clermont. So, and as I said, we'll be recognizing the retirees starting tomorrow for the rest of the month. So any questions for me just about things around town?
Should have a future town hall in a Merwin closet classroom.
Yeah, we're going to go to a closet classroom in Merwin and have a meeting. Yes, well, we will have our chance to get to Merwin. I mean, we definitely talked about some of the improvements that we're going to make. It's going to make a big difference there next year, but it's challenging. There's lots of competing priorities in that space, let's say. Okay, that's it.
Treasurer's business?
Okay, thank you. There's two items this evening. The first one, as mentioned earlier, is approval of contracts. It's a resolution authorizing the superintendent treasurer to execute agreements for district services. The one contract that we have is for Bachman HVAC Solutions, and that is for the preventative maintenance program that Mr. LaFada had talked about. The duration of that contract goes from July of '22 through June 30th of '25. The annual amount is $72,900. Just a note with that recommendation, because this is a preventative maintenance project, those buildings that were constructed under the OFCC money, we can use the half mil for that preventative maintenance with it, so we don't have to use all the permanent improvement fund. The three buildings that were not under that construction, we can use the general fund or the permanent improvement fund to do some of that maintenance with. So that's another advantage that came out, doing that as a preventative maintenance service for them, so if we do it. So the recommendation is for authorize the superintendent treasurer to execute the agreement for district services.
You've heard the recommendations, our motion.
So moved.
Mr. Chumley?
I'll second it.
Second. Mr. Houghton? Any discussion?
Was July the, when you were not able to start?
Yearly, 12 months,
Okay,
for 3 years.
okay.
Any other discussion? Mr. O'Mara?
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
5 yes. The second item is resolution waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the contract. This is for the roofing project at the middle school that Mr. LaFada talked about. The amount is for $397,530. Again, there's really two parts to this. The first is acknowledging the rationale for waiving the competitive bidding and then authorizing the contract under an urgent necessity so that the contract could be signed and work start as of June 1st.
Correct.
To get the ball rolling with that. And so the request is to waive competitive bidding and authorizing contract with A.W. Farrell and Sons Incorporated roofing for the West Clermont Middle School roofing project based upon an urgent necessity.
Okay, you've heard the recommendations, our motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Delaney is second.
I'll second.
Mr. Patton, any discussion?
I do have one discussion. This particular building, the roof has been, I feel like it's been fixed and repaired for the last 12 years. is there some type of a contract that you said, that I think I heard you say a 20-year guarantee on this? So if this company, whatever they're gonna fix, before we pay them, we're gonna make sure that the roof is to our satisfaction?
Yeah.
And then we're gonna have a 20-year guarantee that if this is leaking again in 10 years, that we're not gonna come back to the table to pay this again, it'll be under the, okay.
Roger Thornburg in his new role, before we pay any invoice, Roger inspects the work. He's there looking at the work as it's being done, so yes.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, that roof has been fixed and repaired, and there's been tar put up on that thing. I mean,
Yeah.
when they were putting the Wolfway hallway, they were trying to fix it, and it just seems like we just keep putting a Band-Aid on it. And
Well, this is a 15 to 20-year Band-Aid. It's
Okay.
not a 30-year roof, which we don't need.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Mr. Romano?
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Pat?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
5 yes. Under the treasurer's comments, just a couple things. First of all, as a treasurer, it's really, you know, this is probably not common among treasurers, but it's pretty exciting for me to listen to this group talk about the course of study. I kind of look at these people as the investment portfolio managers, because that's really what they're doing. They sat back and looked at that course of study, which hasn't been done for,
Long time.
yeah, I want to say ever, but like 10, 15 years, whatever it was to do it. And they, we got to go back and remember that this kind of started with the onward and upward, right? It's really part of that whole movement to come out of it. Some of the ESSER money, some of the additional money we got from the revaluation that can be ongoing with it. But the work that they did in my head is almost like this investment portfolio committee studying this on what do we need to do, how do we need to do it, what do we need to invest our money in. We ultimately know the investment is to the kids, right? But they kept talking about the resource, and those materials. But the other really investment is, as you heard this group here talk about, is to the people. That's really being done. And I think when we started that onward and upward momentum, to move the district, that the culmination of that is really coming here. And I really appreciate the fact that you said that the work is just going to be starting. And that's really what the people are doing. And so probably don't hear very many treasurers talk like this, but to me, it's pretty exciting to see that we're spending our money in the right way and the right things to do it. So that's there. Having said that, just kind of looking forward, we have our 5-year forecast coming on the 23rd. I'm going to ask, and after this, we'll schedule a finance committee so we can kind of go through that 5-year forecast before we adopt it at the May meeting. That is supposed to be adopted. That's the second 5-year forecast. We have to do that by May 31st. That's also in preparation for in June when we adopt the appropriation measure for the FY 22-23 fiscal year. So those two things are coming up. That's all I have.
Thank you. Board comments. Mrs. Brinkman? Anything?
I just want to thank the teachers for another great year. Looking forward to wrapping up another calendar year strong. I know the next couple weeks are going to be difficult because the inmates are ready to run. So we appreciate you being there, working these last couple weeks with all of the energy you've had for the last almost 9 months. And look forward to another school year wrapping up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to graduation.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I'm looking forward to graduation in, I don't know,
A lot
20,
of
30 something.
It'll go fast, Michael.
It already is.
I just want to thank the two groups that came in today. The first group, they did a really good job. Like I said, I got to participate in those meetings, and they really were very thorough in their task at hand. So I do appreciate them and taking their time from their family. I appreciate all the staff today giving a great informational speech about the new math project, and I'm looking forward to that as well. So, and I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you to our two groups. I'm so excited about this math curriculum because math was just, it was my demon in school, and I have one child who loved math and I have one child who hated math, and I really am, I don't want kids to struggle the way I personally did and one of my children. So if we can make it fun and exciting, more power to you. I can't wait. Thank you to the whole staff. We're still appreciating you. It's been a great year. I'm so excited I get to be at graduation this year for the first time in person. And just a reminder to, to all the parents that have graduating seniors, cherish every moment of it. It goes by so fast. I just experienced my daughter graduating, my youngest, from college this weekend, and it was like, how did we get here? So crazy. And the town halls, Mrs. Adams, they've just been, they're amazing. I mean, I participated in both, and the information that we're getting from the participants is just, it's amazing. It's out of this world. And the ideas that they're coming up, I had the same topics at both events, and their ideas from each group was just phenomenal. And and this is what's gonna make West Clermont continue on the rise, and I'm just really excited to be a part of that.
Well, I'm very excited about math, even though it's my least favorite subject in the world. I'm going through textbook adoption at Bethel, and it is so cool to see everything that's new out there. The press of a button and all kinds of wonderful things, so I'm excited for you. And I wanted to thank everyone for all their hard work, and I will agree about the town halls. They were absolutely wonderful, much more than I ever expected could be possible. And the attendance was something else. I think that's the best attendance we've ever had at events since I've been around. Okay, we have the need to go into an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. And we will not have any action. So we will, we need a motion for this. Okay, Mr. Chumley. And a second?
Second.
Mrs. Delaney? Discussion? Roll, Mr. Momani, please.
Mr. Chumley?
Yeah.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
5 yes.
Thank you all for coming tonight.